Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's announcement on the Provincial Government Tariff Action Plan. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à...
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this announcement concerning the government's action plan in response to the tariffs.
Are in the following order. The Honorable Susan Holt, Premier of New Brunswick. Honorable Luke Randall, Minister responsible for Opportunities in New Brunswick. Honorable Jean-Claude Damour, Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. And Honorable Pat Finnegan, Minister of Agriculture, Aquaculture and Fisheries. Les porte-parole aujourd'hui.
The people speaking today will be in the following order. Premier Susan Holt, Minister responsible for Opportunities in New Brunswick, Luke Randall, the Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs, Jean-Claude Damour, and the Minister for Agriculture, Aquaculture and Fisheries, Pat Finnegan. Before asking the Premier to speak, please turn your microphones off.
Everyone online to ensure your microphones are placed on mute.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde pour être parmi
Hi, everyone, for being here.
us this morning. Today, our province and our entire country faces a reality that we haven't seen before. Aujourd'hui, notre province
Our province today and all our country is facing a new reality that we've never seen before.
officially announced the implementation of a 25% tariff on Canadian exports and 10% on energy. These illegal, unjustified tariffs will have heavy consequences for New Brunswickers, for our businesses, our communities, and our economy. 92% of our exports go to the U.S. These tariffs are an attack on Canada and on who we are, and they mark a turning point for our province and our country. Canada and the U.S. have been good trading partners, good neighbors for a long time. Here in New Brunswick, we know this better than anyone. We share 17 border crossings with Maine, and many New Brunswickers and Mainers alike consider themselves neighbors, cousins. You don't treat your neighbors like this. Quand est venu le
When the time came to respond to concerns at the border, Canada invested $1.3 trillion, or billion dollars, and we, from the fentanyl traffic from Canada at the borders and at the American borders, went down by 97%, making our communities safer throughout the country and here. There is no other place like New Brunswick. We are people who work hard and resilient, and together we will get through this storm.
like New Brunswick. We are a province of entrepreneurial, resilient, scrappy people, and we will weather this storm together. I've just met with New Brunswick exporters to share our support package and our action plan, and to assure entrepreneurs in this province that we have their backs. In addition to the measures we've already announced, we've been working hard to develop a plan that includes support for affected New Brunswickers and communities, relief for New Brunswick businesses, including those most impacted by tariffs, such as our forestry sector, fisheries sector, agriculture sector, and manufacturing industries. We've taken concrete steps to knock down interprovincial trade barriers. And we've put in place the tools you need to help you buy New Brunswick-made products.
New Brunswick will not be intimidated. We are a proud and unique province, the best in the province with the best people and the best products. We know our worth.
Be bullied. We are a unique and proud province with the best people and the best products. We know our value. As soon as Trump began talking about tariffs, we took steps. To date, our government has put a stop to the purchase of any new U.S. products. On a cessé de signer de nouveaux contrats avec des entreprises américaines.
We've stopped all the buying all American products, and we have started a new supply strategy to replace American products used by the provincial government.
Exports like seafood and lumber in partnership with other Atlantic provinces. On a finalisé à
We finalized through Opportunities New Brunswick and post-secondary education, training, and labor programs to support business people and their workers. And Minister Randall will be talking about it, and Minister Damour will speak about this as well. And we put an end to internal trade barriers.
to strengthen our economy in collaboration with our federal and provincial counterparts to make it easier to do business across Canada. This is something Minister Damour will be talking to you more about. We have been meeting regularly with New Brunswickers, with export companies, with chambers of commerce to understand their challenges, to incorporate their feedback into our plan. J'ai rejoint le premier
I contacted the Prime Minister in Washington, and we met many senators and congresspeople, and they all agree that these tariffs are bad for both countries, and they've started speaking out about them.
of we will do whatever it takes to defend New Brunswickers and our province. Our government is using every tool in our toolbox to protect New Brunswick workers and our economy. Même si la situation est difficile,
Even if the situation is difficult, we have a unique opportunity, and there's we are trying throughout Canada with our partners throughout the world as well to work together to open new markets and eliminate trade barriers. This is our opportunity to show Canada and the rest of the world all of our products, services, and solutions that New Brunswick has to offer.
challenging moment, but it presents an opportunity for New Brunswick. There is momentum across Canada, and with many of our friends around the globe, we can open new markets. We can break down trade barriers. This is our chance to show Canada and the world the incredible products, services, and solutions that New Brunswickers make. New Brunswick, we need you to rally together and to support each other. Just like we've seen you do over this past month. We see you buying more New Brunswick products. We see you changing your habits and changing your plans, all to help each other. And I have every confidence that through these challenging times, we will show our love for New Brunswick and for New Brunswick-made products. New Brunswick is an exceptional neighbor, a great trading partner. We have deep connections here and around the world. We are the only bilingual province in Canada. We are accessible through our ports, our airports, our networks, and our relationships. Now is the time for us to come together. C'est le moment de s'unir.
We have to get together as New Brunswickers, as neighbors, and with our other people, with everyone throughout the province to defend our province and country with strength.
Before, as neighbors, as New Brunswickers, and with our counterparts across the country, to stand strong and free for our province and our country. Merci. Thank you.
My name is Luke Randall. I'm the Minister responsible for Opportunities New Brunswick, ONB. A critical part of our tariff response plan is dedicated to supporting New Brunswick businesses. We recognize that this support is needed today in response to tariffs into the future as we build a strong, sustainable economy. I want to reinforce that New Brunswick is open for business, and our government is here to help businesses impacted by tariffs. We are pleased to announce today a competitive growth program through Opportunities New Brunswick to enhance the long-term sustainability of New Brunswick export-intensive companies. We are investing $40 million to support large companies with addressing competitiveness gaps, stabilizing operations, and protecting jobs. It will also be available to companies that are making strategic investments in projects that foster growth through productivity and market diversification. Through the Competitiveness and Growth Program, we expect to generate short-term stability, long-term competitiveness, and economic resilience for New Brunswick businesses. ONB has also adjusted its existing programs to ensure that businesses and sectors directly impacted by tariffs have the access to financial support to maintain and grow their operations in our province. Working capital loans will offer financial support of up to $5 million to companies in tariff-impacted sectors to help maintain their operations. The program will be managed by ONB through its existing $50 million loan budget. ONB will also leverage $30 million financial policies to ensure that they are responsive to current challenges to help mitigate the impact of tariffs, support contingency planning, market diversification, and productivity improvements. We know there remains a lot of uncertainty in New Brunswick, across Canada and globally. But I'm here to tell you that we are ready and we have your back, New Brunswick. I also want to thank the hundreds of businesses that have given us input as we've framed up these programs, who have also involved themselves in our calls and our webinar series. Without them, we could not have framed up these programs. If you have questions about tariff-related support or general business-related matters, I encourage you to leverage ONB Business Navigators. Remember, it is critical that we continue to support our local businesses and entrepreneurs. You can help by choosing New Brunswick and Canadian products wherever possible. Thank you, New Brunswick.
Bonjour. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
All for joining us today, and a big thank you to the Premier and my Cabinet colleagues. The threat of U.S. tariffs on Canadian exports to the United States has raised public consciousness in Canada regarding opportunities to support Canadian businesses and workers by purchasing more Canadian products. One of the ways to address this threat is for federal, provincial, and territorial to work toward reducing barriers to internal trade and to improve labor mobility within Canada. Les provinces et les territoires canadiens.
Provinces and territories in Canada know that's more important than ever to lighten and even get rid of some policies that often complicate the sale of products and services from Canada outside of their own province. Last Friday, as minister, I prepared a committee of I was at an internal trade meeting in Toronto with others from Canada. We are continuing to talk about reducing our internal barriers and continuing to look at recommendations to the Prime Minister. They've all showed that they were ready to take important measures to develop the national economy.
Brunswick is ready to take a leadership role in reducing interprofessional trade barriers within Canada by working to reduce regulatory and administrative burden between the provinces and territories. We announced that after an ambitious review of our party-specific exceptions to the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, CFTA, New Brunswick is ready to remove 9 and narrow the scope of 1 and ready to remove another 6 that represent more than 50% of our exemptions. These exceptions are mostly related to the area of procurement. Nous avons annoncé qu'après
For looking through our exemptions through the free trade agreement, New Brunswick was ready to get rid of 9 and to delay one of the others, and we want to get rid of 6 others, which would represent 50% of our exemptions. These exemptions concern mainly the supply.
Unified approach on labor mobility. The government of New Brunswick believes that a more unified approach to labor mobility and a reduction in barriers would help workers transition more seamlessly. Inconsistent recognitions of credentials between provinces continues to be a challenge. New Brunswick is looking at automatically recognizing certified workers from another jurisdiction for a minimum of 120 days, allowing them to work while obtaining any necessary provincial credentials. Le Nouveau-Brunswick envisage de reconnaître
New Brunswick wants to recognize accredited workers for a period of 120 days, allowing them to work while trying to get their accreditations here in New Brunswick.
Participating in a direct-to-consumer sales of alcohol and eliminating personal exemption limits for alcohol, reducing regulatory and administration burden for truckers and take part of mutual recognition on goods. And finally, taking part in enhancement of the trade promotion approach of Team Canada. By actively taking part pan-Canadian efforts to facilitate stronger internal trade, we are strengthening our province and Canada's economy by allowing for businesses right here at home to grow and create jobs within Canada. Notre gouvernement est prêt à faire ce qu'il faut.
Our government is ready to do what it has to do for business to stay competitive and continue to grow. We are also committed with our regulatory organizations by reducing the mobility of labor and
to support businesses to stay competitive and continue to grow. We will also engage with our regulatory bodies and stakeholders in reducing barriers to trade and labor mobility within Canada. Whether or not additional tariffs come into effect, we need to think about our long-term success as a province and a country, and that means having more free trade within Canada. Merci à vous tous.
Bonjour, hello to everyone. I want to first thank our Premier Holt and her team for the hard work that they have done in the past couple of months to prepare our province and our country for this day, a day that we hoped would never arrive, but we are ready. The Department of Agriculture and Aquaculture and Fisheries has had a strong buy local strategy in place since 2016. Now more than ever, it is vital to make sure that New Brunswickers know where to find information on buying and supporting local. The New Brunswick seafood and agri-food industries are a cornerstone of New Brunswick's economy, exporting $2.75 billion in product last year. As most people know, the United States is our top market, with 81% of our seafood and 85% of our agri-food exports going south of the border. Nous communiquons régulièrement avec nos secteurs et nous comprenons les pressions financières importantes auxquelles ils sont confrontés.
We are communicating regularly with our sectors and understand the financial pressure they're going through, and our priority is to support the businesses and the workers.
Having spent most of my life as a food producer, I understand the stress of not knowing what's ahead. But I want our farming and fishing sectors to know that we hear you, we are working on your behalf.
This problem is not only one for exports, but also all of our food production system, because not only do we sell our products to the United States, but also we depend on them for some key inputs that support our industries for growing and producing. It's essential to support our sectors today to guarantee food security and self-sufficiency.
Our resilience of our industries. That means diversifying markets, investing in productivity, and breaking down interprovincial barriers, trade barriers, particularly impacting our seafood sector. I would also like to emphasize one key step would be an immediate renewal of the Federal-Provincial Atlantic Fisheries Fund agreement to support innovation and competitiveness in our seafood sector. Au fur et à mesure que de nouveaux défis
As new challenges show, we will look for new strategic solutions in collaboration with our partners in our Team Canada and Team New Brunswick approach.
It is critical to support local food products. Every dollar spent on New Brunswick grown and made products strengthens our economy, supports local jobs, and keeps our food system resilient. Nous mettons aussi à la disposition des Nouveau-Brunswickois une série de ressources pour vous aider à
We are also giving New Brunswickers resources to help you make proper choices when it comes to local food, because it goes well beyond the kitchen table. And this is measures that can help. We have the Eat, Explore Local .ca et mention local ici.
guide, a calendar of food events, local for good videos showcasing local producers, and link to a New Brunswick farmers market map, just to name a few. So shop direct, achetez en direct, faites vos achats directement dans les...
For shop direct, acheter en direct, do your shopping in the CSA baskets, community support baskets, as well as farmers markets and others.
A simple way to identify New Brunswick-made product in grocery stores. This initiative helps showcase and promote our province's food and beverage industry. Our department is committed to supporting our local growers and producers in every way we can. The Made in New Brunswick, Buy Local Good for Good websites will help guide you to the best of what New Brunswick has to offer. It might mean that you might have to switch your orange juice to apple juice in the morning, or cranberry juice, even if it starts. So those are some of the small examples and adjustments that we may have to make. So we will get through this together. I firmly believe that we will come out of it stronger. Merci, thank you.
I'd like to thank all our podium speakers. Je tiens à remercier tous nos
I want to thank all the people on our podium. Nous passons maintenant aux questions des membres des médias. Chaque journaliste aura une question et une question de suivi rapidement. Et vous avez le droit de poser la question dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Mais je vais vous laisser savoir que je vais alterner entre les membres des médias qui sont ici dans la salle et ceux qui sont en ligne.
Procéder aux questions des journalistes. Chaque journaliste a droit à une question et un suivi très, très rapide. Vous avez le droit de poser vos questions dans la langue de votre choix. Pour votre information, je vais alterner entre les membres des médias qui sont présents ici dans la salle et ceux qui sont en ligne. Jacques Poitras, CBC.
Good morning. There's been some other measures talked about that I'm not hearing from you, such as Doug Ford cutting off electricity to the U.S. Northern Maine relies on NB Power's electricity. Or requiring Vescor to divest its investments in certain U.S. companies like Tesla. So are those in the toolbox as well, and why aren't you doing those right off the top?
Thanks for the question, Jacques. Certainly everything is on the table. Our response today is our first step. And as things unroll, as we work to eliminate the tariffs and ensure that they are very short-lived, we will look at other steps like the ones that you mentioned. Our neighbors in Maine are our friends, and we want to put serious consideration into the decisions that might hurt some of the people that have already spoken up against the tariffs that the president has illegally enacted. But we are considering the options that you've laid out, and they may be on the table. They are on the table now. They may be implemented in the future.
Follow-up. On internal trade, I heard a lot of discussing, looking at, prepared to. How many of these measures are unilateral? How many of them are going to require all 13 provinces and territories to agree to them? And if that's the case, how long is that really going to take to sort out?
So New Brunswick's removal of procurement exceptions is unilateral. It's something we are doing and requires no reciprocity. On labor mobility, that is also something that we are advancing, but we are going to be pushing for every province to do that and to recognize the certifications that New Brunswickers hold. But we can advance labor mobility in our province by recognizing credentials across the country on our own, and our cabinet has already approved, I think we're the only government in the country that is at this point, but has already approved the removal of those exemptions.
Alex Villeneuve, Radio-Canada.
Oui, les mesures de représentation.
Yes, when it comes to, for works, we've been talking about things being on the table and that we have to take Canada and New Brunswick seriously, but I haven't heard of news today as to why we don't further when it comes to retaliation. The federal government will be we'll be announcing the retaliatory measures soon. I think they have about $155 billion, and this includes for New Brunswick, which will be part of that team. But is there something that? Okay, yes, we're taking part with Team Canada about the retaliatory tariffs. We don't have unique New Brunswick, but there's a frustration here in New Brunswick. Do you feel that frustration? Yes, I'm very frustrated. They are our neighbors, they were our best friends, and now they are attacking Canada, and we don't agree with that. We are going to fight for New Brunswick, and we will use our friends from the entire world to show that New Brunswick products are the best and that they need us. And we will win this battle with all of Canada and with all of our friends throughout the world. Thank you.
We'll now go online. Alexandre Boudreau, Acadie Nouvelle. Peux-tu
Okay, can you please deactivate the microphones on your computers? Yes, you hear me? Yes, very well. My question is for Mr. Damour. He talked about exemptions for interprovincial trade, and I'd like to know the impact of what you're going to do. Can you give us examples, concrete examples about barriers that you're going to get rid of? And like when New Brunswickers want to see products from other provinces, can you give us an idea, an example of an industry that will benefit by getting rid of these barriers? Well, thank you for the questions, and certainly the objective that we took last week at the Internal Commerce Committee was to make sure we could open doors for the New Brunswick markets, and that's the objective for all provinces throughout Canada, as well as the territories. But we came with a series of measures that we presented to the committee, 9 exemptions that will be eliminated, 1 that will be adjusted with certain provinces where we're having discussions for now, and 6 others that could be withdrawn after discussion. Ultimately, we want to make sure that supply can be done as easy as possible between provinces and territories, and also the matter of labor mobility. We know that someone who also has a certification in another province should be able to come to New Brunswick and work. And our presentation to come up with the 120 days of work is unique, and I hope the other provinces and territories will follow this example to make sure we can really have true mobility of labor throughout the country, and make sure also that we can have free circulation of our goods and services. A follow-up, Mr. Boudreau? Mrs. Holt, how often will we have new retaliatory measures? Will it be next week if they continue? Is it just Ottawa that will announce them, or will New Brunswick also have some? At this point, we are looking at what is happening over the next 3 weeks when it comes to the retaliatory measures already in place. When it comes to, for example, NB liquor products, for example, and stopping buying American products by the government of New Brunswick and replacing these products. And after the next 3 weeks, we will have a new initiative of retaliatory initiatives, and we will see if we were able to move the files ahead with the United States, and we'll have to see. We have to show them just how much they need us when it comes to the effects on the American economy. Andrew Paul, Post Media.
Of these tariffs on your political agenda. Well, last week we were having a theoretical discussion. Now we're having the discussion. Talk me through about how you try to balance what you think needs to be done in order to keep the economy going versus all these promises that you've made and the push and pull that is going to happen there.
That is the challenge of governing, is finding the right balance that is in the best interest of New Brunswickers today and for the future. So we have been wrestling with how we support our entrepreneurs, how we ensure that we have a vibrant and active economy that presents the kind of good paying jobs that New Brunswickers can have to pay the bills and have a good quality of life. We know that New Brunswickers need better access to their healthcare systems. They need a strong education system for their kids and their future. They need affordable places to call home, and they want to see an environment that is well protected. And so we have to balance how we stimulate our economy in the face of a challenge that we have never seen before. Right now is not the time for austerity. Now is the time to get behind New Brunswick businesses and entrepreneurs, get behind New Brunswick workers, and show them that we have got their back. We are going to protect that economic activity in New Brunswick that will help us in the long term continue to make the investments that we're making in the healthcare system and getting more New Brunswickers access to the care they need. So there's a real balance here. We've been engaging with economists, we've been engaging with stakeholders to try to find what is the best way forward that is fiscally responsible, but that addresses New Brunswickers' needs today and sets us up to deliver to those needs tomorrow.
Follow up?
Okay, that all sounds great, but also sounds super expensive. So what should we be looking at? Like, what should New Brunswickers be looking at in terms of the budget? Like, is the deficit going to be, like, we had the 400 million from a starting position? Where are we going to land on all this? Like, because it sounds costly.
Yeah, the budget is going to be tabled on March 18th, and the team is working to finalize it now. Obviously, you've heard us describe a significant support package for New Brunswick workers and for New Brunswick entrepreneurs and communities, because we need to make sure that we can get through this tariff fight, however short-lived, and come out strong and resilient on the other side. We've got to make sure there's an economy here to support the delivery of healthcare services and education services. So we are continuing to work very hard on the budget. We are trying to manage it while not kicking the can down the road. We have seen too many governments kick the can down the road and not enact the kind of transformational change that we need. We can't continue with the status quo. The status quo in our healthcare system is not going to work. The status quo in our education system is not going to work. The status quo in our economy is not going to work. We have to do things differently, and we have to change those tires while we're driving the bus. So it is a challenge, no question. We are approaching it with a focus on balance and making sure that New Brunswickers can have what they need, have the jobs they need to pay the bills, have the roof over their head that is affordable and safe, and have access to the health care that they and their loved ones need, all doing so in a way that we can manage in a fiscally responsible way over the long term.
Nick Moore, CTV.
Good morning. On the list of retaliatory tariffs that we'll expect to see today, what on that list came from you in terms of what New Brunswick could offer, as you said, to inflict the most pain?
There is a long list of tariffs that make up our retaliatory tariffs that I think has been published and publicly available. There's a number of specific things that, we've already taken off the shelves. You're not going to find Kentucky bourbon at the NB liquor stores, and you haven't for about a month now. And we've seen what that means for how New Brunswickers are choosing New Brunswick-made products because we have excellent spirits and other beverages that we make in this province. We're going to see impacts on things like furniture, non-essential items, because New Brunswick has excellent furniture makers, cabinet makers, and others, and so we can replace those products. Folks here can buy from places like Monsieur Tamat, greenhouse-grown tomatoes and cucumbers that are some of the best you'll find anywhere. And so we've put retaliatory tariffs on the things that New Brunswickers produce and that we don't need to bring in American products to meet New Brunswickers' demand.
And how much interaction are you expecting between yourself, your provincial colleagues, the federal government? Will this be a daily meeting that you'll be having, or how much contact, now that we're into this, are you expecting?
Yeah, it's a good question, Nick. We've been meeting weekly right now, as well as with considerable exchanges in between those Wednesday afternoon meetings. We have one today at 3 o'clock with the First Ministers to connect on this subject. And then my counterparts have been having very regular meetings on internal trade. We expect the federal government to communicate their support package to New Brunswick workers and Canadian workers. And we expect to continue that conversation. So at a minimum, on a weekly basis, we will be connecting with our federal counterparts and other premiers.
Thank you both. We're going to go back online. Sarah from Canadian Press, can you unmute your microphone and ask your question, please?
Hi there. You mentioned a federal government support package. Can you tell me what are you hoping will be in there?
Hi, Sarah. Thanks. We are expecting the federal government to provide capital measures to ensure that businesses have the working capital they need, similar to the package my colleague, Minister Randall, described. We're expecting supports to workers by changing the terms of EI. So we want to see a waiting period waived. We want to see enhancements to the EI program for folks impacted by tariffs so that they can get access to that income support quickly. And I think that there's a job sharing plan that's going to get changed. We're also looking for further supports for the kind of changes that New Brunswick businesses will need to make to access new markets and to move our goods instead of by train across the border with Maine where $12 billion goods pass, instead onto a shipping container and out the Port of St. John or the Port of Baldoon to reach customers in Europe or Africa or beyond. And so we're looking for infrastructure supports for market diversification, supports for workers through income and retraining, and capital supports for businesses.
Sarah, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Madden from Global.
I know you've talked about the upcoming budget, but how much in total will these measures cost, and which budget are they coming out this year or the upcoming one?
The package that my colleagues have described totals about $162 million of support, and we have put that into next year's budget as conditional, so the programs are there to be used if needed for tariff-impacted sectors.
Follow-up?
I know there's talk about exploring new markets. What new markets are those, and how long do you see that taking?
Well, we've been working on exploring new markets for quite a bit of time, but I've never seen both more uptake or more energy behind the work. So we were just host to leaders from Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, where we have lots of opportunity to engage on seafood, on forestry, on cybersecurity, and other things. The Canada-European Trade Agreement that was signed back in 2016-17, I think, hasn't realized its full potential, and so there are lots of opportunities in Europe as Europeans wonder what tariffs are going to hit to them. They are keen to partner with strong and democratic nations like Canada to ensure that those values and those relationships are both economic and social. We're looking at markets in Asia where that's the ultimate destination for much of New Brunswick seafood now, and we think that we can get direct to those markets on our own rather than using partners through the U.S. And then the African market has been changing dramatically, and so we look at what's happening in Africa and India and the Middle East, and we see demand for the kind of products that New Brunswickers make. They're very interested in our food products, our energy products, and some of our solutions. So really, the world is our oyster. The Europeans are ready with an existing trade agreement, and we have close access to them through our port infrastructure. But we have New Brunswick businesses doing business all around the world, and we're going to put in place even more supports to get them there, because their motivation to do so, when your easiest trading partner has now become your most difficult trading partner, the motivation is there to move and find those new customers. We provide a number of supports to businesses that are looking to diversify, and my colleague might be able to speak more to it, but we support their sales and marketing efforts. So as they send a salesperson over to a new market, then we can help offset the costs of that investment. As they stick their neck out to find new customers, we can help de-risk that. We have expertise in the team who can share information on regulatory barriers, the differences in doing business in other countries, because that knowledge exists in-house, and Opportunities New Brunswick Brunswick shares it freely. We leverage the Canadian embassy structure where we know the products that other countries want to buy. Then we can tee up group delivery and line up the logistics so that as many Canadian New Brunswick businesses want to go into that market, we can make it less expensive for them to do so by aligning the logistics costs to get into that marketplace. And then we can leverage the trade agreement that exists now that makes sure that there's free flow of trade and help them get their goods into our friends' hands.
Alexander Johnson from All New Brunswick. Can you unmute your mic and ask your question, please?
Good morning. I wanted to ask about the competitive growth plan fund specifically. My understanding is that is meant for larger companies. What can that money be spent on? Is that meant to just subsidize operations to keep things going, or is that going into investments to make businesses more competitive?
So it is intended to go into long-term competitiveness programs, but also bring short-term stability. So both. ONB has an existing assessment process. We certainly will be engaging that to make sure we're investing in long-term strategies to help businesses in the long term. Right now, there's a great deal of uncertainty. We're all feeling it. Business leaders are no exception. So this fund is there to help support them in terms of building their strengths, building New Brunswick's overall economic strength, and bringing long-term competitiveness. So a little bit of both.
Alexander, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on some numbers when we were first having this conversation, either in early February or January. At the time, Premier, you said that these tariffs could cost New Brunswick between 4,000 and 6,000 jobs. What is that looking like today as far as potential job loss in the province?
Well, that's still the best forecast that we have, Alexander, that 4,000 to 6,000 range. We know that there's more than 35,000 jobs that are attached to our U.S. economic activity, but we don't expect that to go to zero today. The implementation of these tariffs doesn't mean that all purchasing stops. It just means that our competitive position with the U.S. is diminished, which may cause a reduction in revenue for businesses and the need to implement layoffs. So we're still estimating right now around 6,000 jobs that are at risk, and we will see how quickly the buying behaviors change. We know that the U.S. depends on our petroleum exports, our wood exports, our agriculture exports, and they don't have easy replacements for those things. If you're in Boston or if you're in Maine, your choice of where to get gas or how to heat your home, you don't have 10 different suppliers out there. And so the customers will continue to be there, and we're going to see and be ready to support any New Brunswicker whose job is impacted by these tariffs.
Thank you both. Vicky Hogarth, CHCO TV.
Thank you, Bruce. Premier Holt, this weekend, the mayor of Campobello transported 2 photographers to the island to help islanders update or get passports because of tightened borders, and even getting day-to-day supplies to the island is becoming increasingly more complicated. What's the latest update from the province on what you're doing to protect islanders who don't have a year-round ferry to date?
Thank you for the question, Vicky, because the people in Campobello are in a particularly challenging situation, and I thought the mayor's initiative to help people get passports was an excellent one, because we know that the ferry that currently operates from Deer Island is not available every day. It's not available when islanders need it, so we have to come up with the kind of access to New Brunswick that Campobello needs in order to meet their requirements as a part of New Brunswick. We can't get a new ferry there tomorrow. That's unfortunately not the speed of our response, but we were working with the mayor. The mayor was on a call that we held with border communities to articulate the issues, to flag the kind of supports available to him and to the other mayors along the border, and so those conversations and that collaboration is continuing.
A follow-up, Ms. Hogarth?
Thank you. And on that topic of border towns, in what ways do you anticipate New Brunswick's border towns will be uniquely affected by these tariffs? What were those conversations like with local leaders? What are their concerns?
At the time when we last talked with the mayors of the border communities, we were talking significantly about security, wondering about outmigration from the U.S. as more and more people were being pushed and deported, and whether that was impacting our communities. We were talking about the additional surveillance and monitoring that New Brunswick and the Canadian government had put on the border, the impact of the Blackhawks that some community members were seeing, of the drones, and of the additional monitoring we were doing, the need for additional personnel at a time when the U.S. was reducing their presence and their hours at border facilities. And so that was the main discussion at that point in time. But now we're looking at what might be the economic impacts, because we have a number of communities, Edmundston being one, clearly St. Stephen and others, where the economic ties are significant, where people move across the border to buy and shop, where pulp moves through a pipe from one side of the mill over to the other, that will have significant impacts on the economies of those communities, which is why we included a community support piece in the package that we described today, supported through RDC.
Thank you. Alex Delcourt, CHIU-TV. Teresa Blackburn, River Valley Sun, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Silas Brown, CBC.
I'm going to return to tariffs in a moment here, but are you able to confirm the reporting in the Globe and Mail this morning that Vitalite has canceled the remaining shifts of nurses employed through the CHL contract?
Yes.
Follow-up. Firstly, do you have anything to say on that, about that decision?
Well, we know that the CHL contract has been a source of frustration, cost, and an issue for New Brunswickers, and an issue for our nurses who watched folks come into our province, get paid significantly more than them, and see some of them lose shifts and lose opportunities. So we are glad to be getting out of that contract and focusing on New Brunswick nurses, who we need to retain and support for the long-term health of our healthcare system. So Vitalite has been taking aggressive action to get us out of a bad contract.
I see up there, it says tariffs, our action plan, supporting people impacted by job loss. I didn't hear any of you speak about direct support for people during your first go-around there, and then it wasn't until you were asked about EI supports that it came up. So what is the province doing? Is that just going to be part of the federal action plan, or is the province also going to be involved in that job loss piece?
The Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour has $33 million put aside through Working NB to provide supports to New Brunswickers as they look to retrain, as they look to manage their way through a temporary shutdown of their business. And so they provide consultation, connection, access to retraining funds, and access to income support. So that's through the Department of Post-Secondary Education and Labour. I have the minister here with me, actually, if you want to add on.
Yeah, exactly. The 33 million will help, those who may lose their job for, sometime for a few months. So we'll see. Hopefully it will be for only a few weeks if this happens. So we will work with our local Working NB offices to make sure that we can assist each and every one that are in need in the province.
Is that just the normal Working NB budget, or has that been boosted as part of this response?
This is part of the package for this actual situation, 33 million.
Additional money.
Reprofiling of the existing Working NB budget.
Reprofiling of the, sorry, I'm going to get in trouble if I keep asking questions.
Rochnog, Radio-Canada. Peux-tu désactiver vos micros? Monsieur Rachnog, peux-tu désactiver votre micro?
Please deactivate your mic.
Adam Huris, Post Media. Please.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks.
You gave the figure of $162 million total for the tariff action plan. I was trying to do the math here. There's 40 million, another 33 million. Could you give us a rough breakdown of how we get to 162 million, and if all of that is new money and not repurposed money?
Yeah, we can send you the breakdown. I think if my memory serves, we've got $50 million accessible in working capital loans, $30 million through ONB's investment budget, $40 million in the competitiveness fund, $33 million in post-secondary education training and labor, $4 million with the fisheries fund, and I think $5 million with RDC for community supports. Was somebody adding that up? Did that get there?
Pretty close. I'm asking that quick, sir. Follow-up, you also announced removal of several interprovincial trade barriers and what appeared to be the end of the long-held limit on the import of alcohol from another province for personal consumption. Is that effective now? And have you done any kind of impact study on what that means for NB liquor revenues?
There's two elements. The first one, it's direct to consumer, and I need to mention that both of them will need a new legislation modification. So the first one is a direct to consumer. So we indicated to the Committee of Internal Trade that New Brunswick is interested to be part of this program. It's not all the provinces that have accepted to join, but we have announced that we will join this direct to consumer. This will help some of our business in New Brunswick to be able to sell in other provinces and territories. On the personal limit elimination, this is something that I think it's an ongoing discussion for years and years, and it's at the point that we want to make sure that we open real discussion. That we want to have a very good interprovincial sales of goods and service. So this is another element that we show that New Brunswick was a real leader within the Confederation.
Merci beaucoup.
So just
Premier?
It's going to happen, but you just need legislation first.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Premier, closing words.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. I want to thank New Brunswickers who have come out in full support of their colleagues, their neighbors, their entrepreneurs who have been buying New Brunswick made like never before, who have canceled plans to cross the border and who are going to be vacationing and spending their time and energy in our beautiful province. I want to invite members of Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, the Northwest Territories, the Yukon and Nunavut to come to New Brunswick and to see what a unique and special place we are as we all look to support each other as Team Canada through this. New Brunswickers are resilient. We are great neighbors. We look after each other, and we have the resources and the people that will see us through this storm. We are going to get through it. It is going to be tough. It is going to cost money. But I want New Brunswickers to know that your government is here. We've got your back as workers and entrepreneurs. We will do what it takes to protect our economy and to ensure we come out the other side of this storm stronger and more resilient, as I know New Brunswickers are. Je veux remercier tout le monde.
I want to thank everyone, all New Brunswickers, for for everything they've been doing over the past month, all their local buying of New Brunswick buying, and we're seeing that you are buying more than ever products from here. That you are changing your plans and your plans and your habits because we are great neighbors, and we are hardworking neighbors, resilient neighbors. It's going to cost us a lot, but we are going to continue to be who we are, people who work hard and who take care of their neighbors and are resilient. We will find our friends throughout the world. We will create new partnerships and be stronger at the other side of this together as our unique province.
Get through this, leveraging them and our Canadian neighbors to realize the potential of New Brunswick to be the strong and resilient and free place that it is among Canada and in the world. Thank you. Merci.